take a break from typing and tune in to the Part-Time Writers Podcast, the show where two part-time writers with full-time jobs look to profit from their passions, pay their bills, and please their wives. Join hosts CM Raymond and Ellie Barbant as they chronicle their meteoric rise to literary mediocrity. It's the Part-Time Writers Podcast.
Hello and welcome to Part-Time Writers Podcast. I am Chris Raymond.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, and who are you?
I am Lee Barbant.
Hello, Lee.
We are the Part-Time Writers Duo.
We are the Part-Time
Partners.
Writers Duo, or collaborators, and as we've said the last two episodes, this is probably the podcast you should not be listening to. If you're a writer, and especially a part-time writer, your time is precious, and so shut this off, go get some words in. But if you're burnout, if you're out for a run, if you're on your commute to your full-time job, welcome.
Yeah, as we chronicle the experience of going from having made no money or almost no money writing to trying to make this a full-time gig.
My fiction writing, I looked it up the other day because you keep referring
I'm
to...
curious. I've partnered with you. I want to know
Well, the first book in the series is free, and I've sold... I did serials. I think I've made a grand total of about $12
Nice.
off the Arcanum Island series. Partially because... And it's had some Kindle Unlimited reads, but for the most part, I think it's safe to say you and I have started at zero.
Okay.
Fair enough. Just so people know.
Fair enough.
So I'm not sitting on a ton of experience as far as sales go. I think nearly 3 seasons or 3 books, like the writing experience has been priceless.
Mm-hmm.
Literally priceless. I've made almost nothing out of it.
Nice.
So
Nice turn of phrase there. That's what's going to make us great writers.
Yeah, thank you. So this is really a chronicle of the experiment.
Yeah.
So as of January 23rd, that was the date where we saved our first Word document.
Yeah.
And by January 23rd, we're trying to see if we can have the means to go full-time if we want to at that point.
Yeah, if you're looking for resources to help you with your writing, plenty of ones out there, excellent ones we would recommend.
This is not it.
If you're looking for someone to kind of like listen to go, oh, they're afraid of that too? Perfect. I'm not alone. That's our goal with this.
The one thing that will be helpful eventually, I hope, is that we really will be doing in real time what we're doing in our release schedule, what's working, what's not working. I am committed to talking about numbers.
Yeah.
So, what ads we use, what ads we run, the release schedule for 3 books.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell people what we're making because I don't really care.
Yeah, in some ways we're going to try to use the standard kind of like practices in terms of for success. In some ways we're going to try to do some of our own things. So
yep.
It's kind of interesting to see how well we do.
And right now we're looking at, we've talked about end of March, launch of book 1.
Yeah.
And we're getting close to the end of book 1. I mean, it's the end is near, as they say.
Yep.
And so as long as book 2, we get good traction on it through March. Currently it's February, 16?
16.
Yeah, my 6-month birthday. My half birthday.
Happy
today.
6-month birthday.
And your birthay's tomorrow.
That's right.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Now they'll be able to figure out who we are.
We give them clues.
We'll redact that. So anyway, it's February 16th. We're hoping by the end of March to have launch of book 1.
That's right.
End of April, book 2. End of May might be tight for book 3, but if we can keep it within the 30 days.
At the pace we're going now, I think we can make that all work.
Yep.
Hey, let's talk, before we get into our topic for the week, we set some goals for ourselves in our last conversation. Chris, how did you do? What's your word count for this week?
Okay, I don't remember numbers, so let me look it up real quick. So,
okay, so to remind you about the process,
Can you remind them of my goals?
Chris's goals.
You don't remember.
I don't. They were to write a lot of words every day.
12,000.
He wanted to do 12,000 words in a week. We do these weekly in a week.
Yep.
How many words did you do?
13,520. So went over. I had 2 big days, I think because of the podcast. I don't know if you remember, but I had 2 days writing part-time. So I had my day job on those days.
Yep.
They weren't weekend days, but I was really motivated to get time in any place I could. And I had 2 of my biggest days ever that weren't like weekend days. And so I did 3,200 one day, 3,500 another.
Man.
Which I think is good. The problem is, and this is why we're doing the Part-Time Writers podcast, I listen to folks like the SPP guys who are doing, 5,000 a day, 8,000 a day, 12,000 a day. Or I follow Amanda Lee on K-boards, and Amanda's doing, and she's great. This woman's, I know you don't hang out on K-boards.
I know, I'm still, job. I don't do it.
But Amanda Lee, her commitment is 5 chapters a day, every day, Monday through Friday. And it's funny because she goes on like clockwork, and when people ask the same question over and over and over again, Amanda's gracious enough to say, this is what I do. 5 chapters a day, Monday through Friday. If I don't finish, I don't get my weekend.
Wow.
So for her, that's the motivator.
Yeah.
And so she's doing right around 15K a day.
But here's the difference, right? So they're doing it full time.
Yep.
We're still doing it part time because we're not making any money yet, so we got to pay the bills.
Mm-hmm.
Also, they've been doing this for a while. I think
she's a fast writer. It's the muscle.
I think you can build. I think you'll get better at it as you go. Also, this is the third thing. I'm not committed to speed being the ultimate parameter about what makes a success in this field. I know that like the standard wisdom is the people who can write fast, get their publication out there, have better chances. I still am okay with saying, hey, a little bit slower, it will make it more worthwhile once it's out.
Well,
we'll see.
We will see.
We'll see.
I mean, it's a different world. The indie world is a different world.
Yeah.
And it relies upon keeping the work coming. Mm-hmm. Because even if say we took 2 years instead of 4 months to get 3 books out, and we follow the same schedule, we hold those books 4 years, and then we release them 30 days apart.
Yeah.
Maybe we write something that's better. Maybe we don't.
Maybe
that's
we
still
don't.
debatable.
That's true. That's fair.
We release those 3 books. Say we get a huge spike. Awesome. But 30, 60, 90 days after the release of that 3rd book, what's next? Well, you have another year and a half for the next release. So in the indie world, still kind of the Wild West, you have to keep releasing to keep your name out there. You have to keep up on the charts. You have to keep... And this is why writing a series is so important.
Yep.
You don't find many successful indies who aren't writing in a series. There's
Except
some.
For The Martian,
Andy Weir. I mean, that's a great example.
No, I think that's fair. I think though, does it have to be the Story Grid podcast, the self-publishing podcast, our podcast a couple times? They seem to make these dichotomies between like, hey, either you're swinging for the Jonathan Franzen, or you're slumming it with, I don't know, Jim Butcher. I think, hey, I love Jim Butcher. I love Jonathan Franzen. Does it have to be an either or? Not that we're aiming for like the fantasy Jonathan Franzen, but like 2 years for 4 books, that does seem like too much time. Does every one of our books in the future have to be come out in a month and a half basis? I don't know if that's a rate that's sustainable for good writing. But maybe it is.
Well, I think one of the things that we'll have to do an evaluation of once we're done, because we've already talked about being book snobs ourselves.
Yeah.
So once we're done and we start releasing, even if we start seeing great sales, which I'm not sure we will, but are we still proud of that?
Yeah.
Is it work we're proud of? Even as genre, commercial fiction, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Like, we know we're not writing, Russian literature.
Right.
Partially, we don't know Russian. But
I'm going to spend the next 3 years learning Russian.
Yeah, Duolingo.
Yeah. That's the question, right?
But are we proud of our pop? Like, like it's the question. We're trying to write like the Yingling. We're trying to write the Yingling of beers.
That's right.
We're not shooting for, the craft, the super craft beer. We're trying to get mid-level. We don't want Bud Light either.
Yeah.
And we certainly don't want Milwaukee's Best.
Now, here's the thing. In terms of beer.
But is it good for the category it's in?
That's right. That's right. That's what we're aiming for.
Yeah.
I think my ultimate goal, although we want to make money off of this, I mean that's the plan. I don't think there's anything wrong in saying that. I think though, I want to do a product that is good, fun, accessible. It recognizes its limitations and it's okay with that.
Yeah.
But still something I can be proud of.
Yeah, I think so too. In certain communities.
Yeah.
I mean, part of it is, I know that my friends. Now, I don't know if at the end of the day we're going to come out and just say what we do.
Yeah.
But we work in a community of people that are kind of snobs when it comes to produced work.
I mean, they've been trained to be.
They're specialists. They're specialists in snobbery. So with my friends that like pop fiction,
yeah,
I want to be able to tell them, oh no, you need to. Here's the book. Here's my name, as you know, and you should read it because it's fun.
Yep.
But we're not just shooting for fun. I think that, as people that believe in education, we want there to be some thoughtfulness to it as well.
Why? That's right.
And those are the best pop fiction books.
I don't want to out myself as a huge nerd, but I am more interested in that when I read. Right? Even if I'm reading something that's fun, right? Even if I'm reading something that is meant to be just entertaining, I am more entertained if there's an interesting idea in it.
Yep.
Right? That it's more than just. This is like, I like watching the Expendables movies, but I think that the Avengers is better because it's a little bit more intelligent. They're both shoot 'em up action films. I mean, if you really reduce it, they're both just action movies. One has a little bit more of an intelligence to it.
Okay. I mean, you're outside of my world.
Yeah.
You're the master of these things.
Yeah. Okay. We're rehashing old things. What are we talking about?
Okay. One more comment. One thing that I think that we have going for us is that and this is like unintentionally aping on Johnny and Sean and Dave, which I mentioned last week as well, is that I think the collaboration, with fast drafting, is going to make better work.
Yep.
So what we're doing right now is we both do outline kind of together. Mm-hmm. You do a kind of a finer craft of the outline. You're doing most of the beats. I've done a few chapter beats, not many. And we can talk about that sometime because I've had a harder time writing chapters that I didn't beat.
Yeah.
I'm fast drafting, and I've finally gotten comfortable giving you crap.
Yeah.
Like being willing to fast draft, give it one quick read, pass it off to you, and then you do a relatively thorough rewrite. Mm-hmm. And then we're both going to polish. I know I said pretty much the exact same thing last week. I think that process is going to make our books way better than the solo indie fast writer.
Yeah. Well, that's been one of the questions we've been having. Is it worth my time? Would it better serve our purposes if I spent my time just writing, right? You put out 13,000 words. I don't think I could do that, but I could probably put out, even if I put out half that. If I put out 6,000 words a week, that means you and I together doing, almost 20,000 words. Is that a better use of our time than you putting out 13,000 words, me refining them, maybe adding, I maybe in terms of totals, I don't know how many
500 words a chapter.
Yeah, I'm adding about 500 words a chapter. I probably added, I don't know, maybe 3,000 words this week. But actually, I cut out a lot of words along the way, so the total, the net gain wasn't nearly that. Is that better use of our time?
But the end game isn't
just be writing.
The end game in that sense isn't words on the page. It's good words.
Yeah,
and that's where I think we're winning. The other thing is, okay, so when I first started, I started the Arcanum Island, the teen middle grade adventure story. I started that on tax day, April 15th.
You better claim those $12.
I'm going to claim all my expenses. So I wrote it really fast, but the editing process took me almost as long as the writing process. And that just turned, and I don't enjoy that as much as you do.
Yeah.
So it turned into this slog. And yeah, I think the net gain, I think it's 1 + 1 = 3.
I agree.
I don't think 1 + 1 = 5.
Yeah.
But I think the way we're going, And as far as tone goes, I think that if you and I, like, you've written 2 chapters?
Yeah, roughly.
Roughly 2 chapters. I think that if we, like, went every other chapter or split chapters based on point of view,
Yep.
I think we would lose voice.
I think you're right.
Because we write differently.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know.
Yep.
Okay, so into the topic for the night.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So we've done some process stuff. I think what the bread and butter of this podcast is that we are new at the game, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about some of our, I don't know what you call them, our insecurities this week.
That's what I call them.
We'll start with the question. We're putting a ton of work into this. Not a ton of money, but a ton of work. Right? We haven't quit our jobs to do this.
We put $0 in so far.
So far. We're planning to put some in, but we haven't...
I'm planning on putting a good bit of money in.
But we haven't, there's very little skin in the game, right? If this whole thing fails, at the end of the day, what have we lost? I gave up my evenings for 3 months.
Yeah, some hours of watching movies or reading books.
Right, I didn't go play board games the other day. What happens? We do these 3 books, we get them out by our dates, and they don't sell. They don't make money. We get very little traction.
And with it, we put together a masterful based on, hours of research. Release schedule, marketing plan.
This is part of it, and we'll talk about that in more detail in a later episode. We have an extremely intentional publication kind of plan. What if it doesn't work? And that's one of the things they always talk about, right? That there is some intentional moves you can make, right? Hey, do these things work, these things don't work. But some of it is it luck? Is it fate? Is it just the temperament of the market? Some books get picked up that are kind of crappy, but that gives the writer enough success that they can write better and better books as they go. Some books that are probably just as good don't get picked up. What happens to us? And this is we can keep asking this question for the next 3 months until we know for sure. How are you feeling right now? What happens if this first series isn't a success?
Okay, one of the things that I think would be really good for you to spend some time on K-boards is simply just checking out some of the threads of people talking about. So Domino Finn had that one thread, how to engineer a bestseller. And what's interesting is Chris Fox, and this just helps him. Chris Fox just had a book called Right to Market, and he uses Domino as an example in the book, which is brilliant because that's going to boost Domino's sales even more. I read the first handful of chapters of Finn's book. I thought it was good. I thought it was a really decent storyline. I thought he was doing some cool stuff, and yeah, I think it's good. I don't think it's I don't know if he'll ever hear this, but I think he knows it's not the most amazing thing ever.
Yeah.
And in fact, he even wrote it in such a way, his thread on K-boards makes it sound like, to me at least, he's doing things that he feels like he needs to do, and he doesn't even necessarily want to do.
Yeah.
So in his original series, he was doing things differently because that's how he liked to write.
Yeah.
Like, some chapters are these sprawling, epic chapters. He's doing really well.
Yeah.
Like, the book's doing well. And so...
But I don't think... But here's
my point is this. Hold on, let me finish the point.
Yeah.
My point is, I can't imagine, unless we make... I hope the mic is picking up. You pouring whiskey into your wine glass right now. That's the part-time writer.
This is the method
song.
for success.
I can't imagine that if we write a really good story, which we're on to.
Nailed it.
If we have a great book cover, which you and I are still fighting over, sort of.
We're working on it.
I know. But if we have a great story, great book cover, good editing.
Yeah.
And we work an intentional release, if we end up if it doesn't break out in the mid-list, I will wonder, what does it take? Which ultimately, my nonfiction piece that's coming up on its 1-year anniversary, I'm feeling that a little bit with that book. Go ahead.
Well, that's where... So, I think I'm a realist who's also practical. And I mean this in different ways. I think really, the reality is not everyone can be successful at this game.
Right.
But there are things you can do to help you become more successful. And it might just not work the first time, right? We could write this series and it doesn't work. And then we could write a subpar book next year. A book that doesn't even...
And it takes off.
And it takes off. So...
Well, that's kind of the Hugh Howey story.
Yeah.
Even though Howey's, short story that started the Silo series, it wasn't subpar. I thought it was amazing. But it's certainly, he had written this long, epic YA space story, the Molly Fide series, which is really good. I read it because I like Hugh.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden he wrote this like quirky, slow burn short story. And that's the one that took off.
Yeah.
And I think he said he can't explain why. But for him, that's where he would say it's math.
Yeah.
You write enough, you write long enough, you're going to get a winner.
Yeah, if you can figure out the best odds, you still might come out short. Play the wrong hand.
Do you want to try a sports analogy?
Oh man, these are my strengths. We're gonna do some research on poker analogies. You might have the winning hand, statistically speaking, and it loses. That doesn't mean that you're bad at poker necessarily. It just means you should keep playing, right? And so I don't know if, for those of us, if you're listening, if you're like us, haven't really made any money at this game, I'm willing to commit 3 months to it, 4 months to it. I'm willing to commit a significant amount of my time.
How about a year?
Am I willing to do a year, 2 years, 3 years? Shoot, man, I don't know. That would be tough. But that's like Stephen King's story, right? I mean, like, Stephen King had a stack of rejection slips above his door. Is that what it takes?
Well, that's the difference now. You can't manufacture a bestseller. You can manufacture visibility.
Yeah.
And so our job is to write the best damn story that we can and then engineer the most visibility possible.
Yeah.
And if those two come together just right, it should work. But if it doesn't, well, we try again.
Yeah. Well, let's keep that question in the back burner. We can ask ourselves that late at night for probably a good long while. You had a funny moment this week. I got a text from you late on a Saturday night.
Was that Saturday night?
And you were like, I'm struggling with writing, man. I don't like you right now. Maybe explain to us what you were feeling in that moment.
That's
Chris.
You're a great interviewer. Lee. I hope I've called you Lee all the way through. It hasn't struck me.
We're going to have to go back there.
Yeah. Redact. It's happened before. And I don't know if it's burnout or not. So last week, I did like 7,000 words in 2 days. And then I had 3 more days, I think, or 4 more days of like 1,200 to 2,300. So great pace. And then I don't know if it was the chapters I was working on, the motivation. Like I knew what I needed to do. I knew the project at large, and I just got. It wasn't writer's block.
Right.
I just didn't want to write.
Right.
And that's like we're outlining, we're doing all these things, we're following these processes. So I knew what I needed to write, and I had good beats written, and I could even picture it. But I was like, motherfucker, I don't want to write right now. Which is weird for me because I'm pretty, as you know, like I'm shooting for. So my goal for the year, 2006, is to write 750,000 words.
Yeah.
So right around 2,000 words a day.
Yeah. But here's my question. Would you write better if you wrote 2,000 words a day every day? Or if you wrote 3,000 words a day for 5 days and then took 2 days off?
And that's what you told me. You said, stop writing and watch a good movie.
Yeah. As your partner in this,
yeah.
I'm saying, I think you'd be better if you didn't force it.
Yeah, so I forced 500 words.
Yeah. Which
didn't take too much work. I struggled through it. And then I watched a movie. No, I didn't even watch a movie. I went to bed and... I'm actually reading Johnny Truitt and Sean Platt's Invasion series,
Ooh.
which I think you'd like. Alien Invasions.
I just finished the other day. I finished Yesterday's Gone season 1.
Yeah,
and
freebie.
And they gave me Yesterday's Gone season 2 for free. So I'm going to start that one.
Gentlemen.
I'll read all their free books.
Oh, what you'd really like is White Space.
Oh, yeah?
That might be my favorite series so far. But anyway. No, and that's like this notion that you have to rest. Going back to Amanda Lee. Amanda Lee writes 5 chapters a day.
Yeah.
15,000 words right around. Monday through Friday. And she rests on the weekends. She takes those days off.
Yeah.
After I did that Saturday, mostly Sunday, I wrote a little bit. And then yesterday I cranked out. I finished up the 2 chapters I had started.
Yeah.
And I feel good.
That's one of the reasons where on my end of the thing, I feel a little bit better, right? So there are times when I'm like not in the mood to like edit our work, right? To go through it, to add to it, to write to it. I just don't care. Like it's not that I don't care. I'll like read it and I'll think, yeah, I have nothing to add to this. Which on another day I'd read it and think, there's a lot I need to add. But I've got other things I can do, right? So I've got, if I sit down and I think, I don't know what beats to add. I've got no story in me. Then I can do the editing. If I can't do the editing, I can say, okay, maybe I'll take my hand at the story. If I don't got either of those things, I jump to brainstorming for book 2. We've got this sheet that's already several pages long of just ideas like, what if we did this? What if we did this? What about this character? We'll take it this way. For me, and then I've got even a backup where if like none of these things are like really hitting.
You have your other projects.
Well, I'll
before that.
I'll read for fun and consider it work, and I'll try to read analytically. Or I've got a couple like rhetoric texts that I'm working through, and I'll read them and think like, hey, and actually the couple times that I've done it, I'll read a chapter in this text and it says, hey, if you use this kind of sentence structure, it has this kind of impact. I don't think, shoot, that's the kind of impact we want for this chapter. Right. Good, it inspires me to go back. So as your partner, I'm saying, diversify your time a little bit. I think that will make for better use of your time. I don't think you're really doing it for me, but in case you were, I'm saying, don't do it for me.
Well,
don't kill yourself over the writing.
It's funny because you say that. I'm definitely writing more now that we're collaborating.
Mm-hmm.
Part of that is I'm taking a shot. This year is the year where I take a shot at.
Yeah.
Like 2016 will go down in the books as the year of we gave it a shot.
Yep.
And it worked or didn't work. Now, 2017, we might say we're going to take a second shot.
Yeah.
But I have the warm-up project behind me. That's what this year is taking the shot. And I totally forgot where I was going. I think the whiskey in the wine glass is starting to catch up to me.
Let me do an anecdote while you're thinking.
Okay, good, because I want to turn and do... We're almost at 30 minutes, and we're trying to keep these, unlike our other podcast, trying to keep these on task.
Well, once we're done with this, it's a story meeting for us. We do the podcast, and then
podcast and then story meeting.
So we got some work to do. I had an old boss who used to like start our meetings, not every meeting, but like our vision meetings, by going, okay, who knows anything about trench warfare?
Is this Justin Timberlake?
It's not Justin Timberlake, but you do know this individual.
Okay.
Trench warfare.
Is this the photographer?
No.
Oh, I'll ask you later.
He would say, we have a goal. This is the line we're trying to reach. If we fail at that, we need a backup line. It's not a backup plan. It's not like, hey, this thing didn't work, let's try this thing. It's, we've got the main goal, and then if we can't hold that line, we can retreat back to the next line. Trench warfare is a process of gaining and losing ground slowly.
Right.
So you're trying to gain ground faster than you lose ground.
Right.
But you do lose some ground. So having like these high goals, I think is really helpful. And then having like, okay, if I fail at that, what's the mediated goal? So for me in this whole process, my high goal is, can we make enough money to do this that we can move to this full time?
If we want to.
If we want to. To have the option to make it full time if we want to. That's like the goal we're aiming towards. And I am trying as hard as I can to reach that goal. But in my mind, and this is like several trenches down the line. This is not the next trench. But I've got a way later trench that says, at the end of this, if we write a book, and even if we indie publish it, and I'm happy with it, that's a goal that I've always wanted to accomplish. I've always wanted to write a book, And if that's all we get out of it, it's still worth all the time we've put into it.
We're damn close to you writing a book. I mean,
every day I go into the Dropbox and I look at how many chapters we've completed, and I think, holy cow!
it hasn't even been a month.
Holy shit!
It
I can
hasn't-
say holy shit in this podcast. We don't have to worry about the language.
We went explicit first episode.
I love fake curse words. That's like my thing. Holy cow!
What about?
But
you guys have watched Battlestar, the updated?
Mm-mm.
Really?
Yep. Nope.
You need to watch Battlestar.
I know I do.
Oh my gosh, it's so good.
My wife gives me a weird look every time I suggest it. So.
No, she'll love it. That's the first show where my wife actually got turned on to anything sci-fi.
Whoa.
Let me finish that. To anything sci-fi. She loved that show, and you will too.
Shoot, if your wife liked it, my wife's gonna love it. My wife's way more invested in the fantasy world.
Oh yeah, after that, I thought I could get her to watch Firefly, and she didn't get.
We just finished Firefly the other day.
Oh,
Actually, we
gosh.
just watched Serendipity after finishing Firefly. Holy cow, man!
Christy,
That's a story I want to write.
my wife Christy, and I think I can say that without redacting it.
Christy
There's
and Raymond,
another breadcrumb. So Christy,
who's a person
like-
who was born in July 16th.
1942. So she would say her two least favorite genres before watching Battlestar were science fiction and westerns. So you can imagine her watching Firefly.
That is awesome.
Although she may or may not be ethnically part Asian, which you'd think that would have, because that's a big thing in Firefly is the fusion of Western sci-fi and Asian culture.
That's actually
But it wasn't strong enough.
my favorite subtle. It's not even that subtle, but like it's not the main element. Is the Asian culture.
I brought that up though because in Battlestar Galactica, since they can't say fuck,
Yeah.
they from the beginning they say frack
Oh yeah.
and fracking.
Oh,
or
that's
what
why
the
I think that's why Firefly is so clever. Every time they want to curse, they just do it in Mandarin.
Yep.
And that is, Joss Whedon loves getting curse words past the censors.
Mhm.
And that's a cool way to do it. No, but here's my question though. I know your high goal. What's your next lower trench? If you failed this goal, is it crush you, or do you have ground that you can retreat to and still feel secure in yourself?
Well, I would say at this point I have a top and a bottom.
Okay.
And maybe I need more of the more stratification of goals. So right now I'm running with the 12,000. It's relatively arbitrary. I thought 7 days in a week, 2,000 words a day, working full time with a family and 2 kids. 2,000 words every day might be a little more than I should be planning for. So I dropped it to 12,000.
You give yourself one day off.
Give myself 1 day off. I would say every week I should be doing 7,000 words. So the equivalent of 1,000 words a day. Because ultimately, fast drafting, if I sit down and do a half hour,
Yeah.
if I have a good outline, good beats, in a half hour I can do 1,000 words. That's fast-ish for me typing.
Yeah.
But I've also been dictating, which we'll probably do an episode on.
Yeah.
So I've been dictating, and 1,000 words dictating will take me 12 minutes. And then it'll take me another... Is that right?
You blow my mind with those numbers. I think I said this in the last episode. I'll say it again. You blow my mind with those numbers. I mean, maybe I should do the dictating thing, but I'll sit. It'll take me hours to get 500 words. And I feel good about those 500 words. It takes me a long time to get them, though.
But you're writing those 500 words in such a way that you're not passing them off to somebody else, being okay with them being shitty first drafts. That's what I'm surprised I got to it. I think it was after 3 days I finally realized I have to just save these and let Lee deal with them.
Yeah,
My first 2 chapters, I pined over a little bit.
Yeah.
And I tried to come up with some cleverness and some nice moves. After maybe 2 or 3 chapters, I thought, okay, that's his job. Like, let him do his job. I'll do my job.
You use certain words redundantly, but don't stop doing that. I know how to look for that, and I can fix that. And I've been playing around with better ways to structure the sentence. If it makes you tell the story faster by saying of like 3 times a sentence, say it, man. The of does the thing. Do it. I can break that up into sentences that are more palatable. You're telling the story, and I love it.
Well, that's the beauty of collaboration.
I wouldn't go back to my non-collaborating ways.
Okay, we also talked about hesitancies. Like, we may or may not be writing under pen names. We may or may not be sharing our stories with people that we know within our snobbish community.
Yep.
And we're also dealing with
family
members, especially maybe in-laws, as the, at least, well, probably for both of us, having in-laws who are relatively socially conservative, maybe, in the grand scheme of things. Could we actually be full-time writers and be okay with that?
My in-laws are a little bit socially conservative, but also like culture people. So here, I was talking about this earlier with Chris. I haven't told my in-laws. They don't know I'm doing this. But if I, switch to full-time, they'll have to know, right? I can't just ignore it. If I wrote a book that was excellent, but didn't sell. Literary, but didn't sell.
Because we're trying to write excellent mid-range.
Yes. That if it aimed for a different goal than we're aiming for.
If you wrote excellent Chimay.
Yep.
Versus excellent Yingling.
Yep. I wouldn't be embarrassed to show it to them. If I say, hey, I spent the last year of my life working on this piece.
This great American novel.
Or several years even. I quit my job so I can do this. I think I would still be okay showing it to anyone. If I wrote
even if it made $75 a month.
Yep. If I wrote a book that was just complete shit and it made a ton of money, I would be okay showing it to anyone.
But what you can't do is write a very good book that makes no money.
If I tell my in-laws I quit my job so that I can write superhero stories, it doesn't matter how good those superhero stories are. They're gonna be like, they're gonna start looking at the prenuptial agreements we've signed.
Right. Because they don't see my parents at least are the opposite. Like if I wrote, if I got my Jonathan Franzen on and my dad tried to read that, he'd be like, son, what the fuck have you been doing with your life? What's wrong with you? But he's a huge James Patterson fan.
Yeah.
So I actually think we might write this and my dad will be like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
I didn't know you had it in you.
You're better than James.
Yeah. Your chapters need to be shorter, though.
We're kicking this around. There's a sex scene that we're in the middle of writing, and we have question going back and forth. Do we make it on screen? Do we make it off screen? I think for this book we're doing off screen.
Although the first line of the book, or at least the previous first line, has the word blowjob and reverse cowgirl in it.
Yeah. Well, my mom doesn't know what that means. Hopefully, so I don't.
Well, I hope she knows what one of those things mean at least.
I can make up a thing.
Okay.
No, it's like a thing you do to your car, Mom. It's like his dad taught him how to work on cars.
Yeah.
Get your mind out of the gutter.
It's a blowjob. It's doing his hair.
Oh man.
Okay, well that's we're over 30 minutes.
All right.
Whoa.
What are we at?
We're almost at 40.
No, okay.
Sorry, everybody.
But I wanted to
get to work. Get to work
before we end. So we've got your standard goals. Any specific goals for this week? That's unique to this week.
That's a great part-time writer question because part of being a full-time person in the field that I'm in, weeks ebb and flow.
Yeah.
So last week, I wrote that many words. I broke the goal, I think, because I had a slower week. This week, I'm going to a conference on Friday. So Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I'll be at this conference. I'm a speaker. I will do that. And then Monday, because I have buddies in town for the conference, we're hanging out Monday night. I want to keep the high standard as 12,000. Already, I didn't write today,
Yeah.
Because we had a big day today.
Today was big.
And can I come back and report 12,000 this time next week? Maybe not.
Yeah.
But then my lower goal is if I don't report 7,000 this time next week, I'm going to be pretty pissed.
Yeah.
So I have the upper and lower. I don't have your trenches.
Yeah.
I have one trench to fall back into.
For me...
How about you?
So last week my goal was to...
You have a few chapters. I'm ahead of you by a few chapters right now.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Yeah. So my goal last week was to have part 1 of the book, which is really the first half of the book almost. At least the first third of the book. It's somewhere in between that.
It's probably like a half, I think.
Yeah, it depends on how much time we spend in part 2. I wanted to get that one done.
Uh-huh.
And that is done, except for the prologue and the epilogue.
Well, I haven't written the prologue yet.
Yeah, but there's we're okay with that. That's something we can do at the tail end. Part 1 is done, and I feel good about it. That was my goal this week, and I'm pleased that I met it. This week, coming up, my goal is to keep up with you chapter-wise. So every chapter that you've written, go through. I gotta beat out a couple more chapters, and then I'm just gonna say it loosely. Still do some loose brainstorming for book 2. Book 2, I'm not ready yet to pivot to the actual outlining. I'm still in the brainstorming phase.
Well, it's getting close, and we still have story meeting tonight.
Yeah.
Even though it's midnight right now. But I think we have at least an hour and a half to brainstorm, even though we're part-time writers.
Yeah.
And full-time,
people.
Yeah, jobbers. Yeah, I would love to see you have a little bit more. I think for next week, for a story meeting, if you have a broad outline, like a story arc for book 2, that we can spend next, because I think that's a strategy, is figuring out
it's hard.
What do we want to
get ahead of it?
So next week, if you have the broad arc, so you and I can kick the crap out of the arc together, I think that works really well.
So maybe this week, even I did this a couple weeks ago, focus less on keeping up with your chapters and focus more on beating out chapters ahead.
Yeah, you can catch up with my chapters.
I can catch up with your chapters. Maybe I should focus more on the story.
Because right now, like you were explaining, you have like 3 different types of work you can do.
Yeah.
In our process right now, I'm writing.
Yeah.
So the best thing you can do is keep beats in front of me.
Yeah.
And once you catch up, keep the beats in front of me. And then once you have the beats, 5 or 6, because I'm not doing more than a chapter a day.
Yeah.
Maybe a chapter and a half a day. So anyway, that's a great plan.
All right. Well, hey, thanks for joining us. Good luck on your own projects. If you got any questions, send us a tweet. We'll put our handles in the show notes.
Can you say yours? Do you remember yours?
L.E. Barbant. And that's spelled Barbant.
Nice job.
L.E. Barbant.
And I am @_CM Raymond _
That underscore makes you sound like a douchebag. I think
there's some other douchebag called CM Raymond out there, so I couldn't get it.
Yeah. Lee Barbant is an original.
Yeah, exactly.
Boom.
I've also been playing around with Instagram this week, trying to meet other authors. So on that, I'm actually C.M.Raymond. So if you're on Instagram, drop me a line there, or on Twitter, contact either one of us. And soon we have to, a couple of things we have to do is working title, a more serious working title.
Yep.
We have to, Thursday night, we're meeting with a cover designer.
Yeah, I'm excited about that.
So working on concepts.
I'm a little nervous about that.
And that's funny. And we'll be starting to kind of tease a few more things.
Uh-huh.
So if you get your words in, stay with us.
That's
because
right.
we want to have you here and follow the experiment.
And let us know your own insecurities about this whole thing. We're hoping to do this so that you don't feel alone. Make us not feel so alone either. I feel a little, other than you, I feel a little alone in this project so far. So.
Well, and here's the last word. Seriously. is that there's so many podcasts out there. Most of the podcasters right now are full-timers.
That's right.
And what we're trying to do is being the blue-collar working guys, the white blue-collar working guys who are trying to make it, which is most of the indie authors out there.
That's right.
Most of the people are working full-time, day jobs, and they want to write full-time. So this is your experiment as much as it is ours.
All right. Have a good week. The end.
Yeah.
Sign off.
Boom.